billion by just targeting for that freelancer market that accounted for 40%. So currently, around 20,000 providers who are willing to provide us support as a freelancers, according to LinkedIn data. So with that 3.2 billion market, we're competing with different support coordinators, including interpreter agencies and online platforms. Unlike our competitors, Mazzara is a fully online platform that matches people not only based on the qualifications, but personalized needs as well. So don't take my word for it. So Richard is one of our deafblind customers in the pilot. He goes, I can find a support anytime I need. That really explains that Mazzara can provide such a convenience for our customer to find a support anytime and anywhere. And Katie, on the other hand, she's a provider. She goes, I can just log in and I can get paid on time. So the value proposition for them is we can help them take care of the admin task through our platform. So they can focus their time by providing the top quality support to their customers. But that's not only the whole story. So there are also organizations that will focus on providing support to their network, and their network includes both providers and their beneficiaries. And that's what we're going to target. So by using Mazzara, our value for them is to helping have the one-stop shop form. So they can use Mazzara as a platform to track all the job progress they have and manage all the coordination support. So Mazzara is a partner-driven company. So we want to focus on our 30 organizations that currently receive the government funding, so they can use those funding to provide us support within their network. Currently, we partner with 2 organizations already, one with the deafblind camp of Texas, another one with Bridges, Oregon. So this weekend, our founder, Jason, will fly to Texas to help Texas camp to onboard 35 providers and 22 deafblind customers. So according to our revenue assumptions, from the pilots and also benchmark data, so Mazzara received $3,100 per year from each average users. And then we'll keep approximately 15% as our revenue. Those 15% will coming from organization, business, and beneficiaries. But really our long term is we want to allow the beneficiary to use our support free of charge. So we want to shift that payment responsibility to organization, business, and Medicaid. So we work with people working for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They confirm that up to 50% of the reimbursement can be covered by Medicaid, and working with them to understand the process for claiming the benefit from them as well. So after reducing the internal cost, so Mazzara will receive $190 as a contribution margin from each users. And then in 2024, we'll break even after considering the variable cost, fixed cost, and the startup cost as well. So I want to share some recent success. We have up to 127 people sign up on the waitlist. We have earned a total of $3,500 from 10 repeating customers. We have partnered with 2 organizations, and each will alone bring 100 plus customers to our platform and their networks. We have received $15,000 from Amazon, so they will help us to build the technology together. And then finally, we expect to receive $10,000 investments from Polsky Center this summer as well. Today, we're raising $200,000 as pre-seed funding to reach 8,000 matches. Why? Before we get to build our proprietary machine learning algorithms, we want to collect a lot of user data. So we think that 8,000 matches is a sweet spot to help us understand our user preference and their behaviors as well. So with that funding, we'll be able to scale in 12 months. By June 2023, we'll have up to 8,000 successful matches in our platform. We'll be able to train up to 1,500 people become our providers, and then partner with 10 different organizations that can benefit from using Mazzara provider support in their own networks. We have a great team with passion and diverse background. So our founder, Jason himself, is deafblind. I was senior product manager at Amazon working for machine learning product before. We have Amanda, Tony, Carlos, and Wincy, they will bring unique skill and background to the team. So Jason will start working in Missouri full-time this summer, and then I will join Missouri full-time when I graduate in 2024. We also get great advisors. So Wayne himself is founder of Convo that earns 37 million sales revenue last year. So he agrees to become our startup mentors. So by 2027, we'll be able to make great impact by having 5 million successful matches through our platform. We'll be able to work with 20,000 people with disabilities to become our providers, and they can get additional job opportunities and then the job training as well. And lastly, we want our users to feel happy, to find our products useful that can improve their lives. So today, we want to invite everyone to join us. Together, we'll be able to create a more inclusive world where accessibility and equity are not just slogans, but actions. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite my team member to come to the stage for the QA. Please.
Hi, 2 questions for you. One is I'd love to understand the mix of on-site versus virtual services, and how does that affect how you build the network of freelancers and beneficiaries around it? And second, I would have guessed that geographic constraints would be like more of the factor that would drive success. So I'd love to understand a little bit more about how you're viewing the role of AI and machine learning in the ultimate service you're providing.
Absolutely.
I can take that. Right now, there's some people who are still using the internet, people who are deaf and blind or people who have no vision, that need to provide interpreters to be able to facilitate communication. And also, to go to the office or to have in-person interpretation services provides better communication for people with visual limitations than virtual services do. It can be sometimes hard to see an interpreter on a screen. They can't receive full access to the interpreting services when the services are remote. Did that answer both parts of your question?
Well, I'd love to maybe follow on to understand how you plan to build the network and just how AI figures into the product.
Yeah, so I can also follow up the AI part as well. And I want to kind of show you the slides for how the machine learning will work and provide values. Yeah. So what machine learning can really work and help this support is, so now we're collecting the data from the users. So we'll be able to learn their behaviors and preference first. So once we identify the patterns from the users, we'll be able to train our product to even predict that demand in the future. So let's say, if you know that Jason will have a routine like every Tuesday, so what we're going to do is in the product, we'll be able to send a text message then saying that, hey, looks like you have something come up next Tuesday. Would you like to provide a request for the supporter for yourself? If it texts yes through our phone, so we'll be able to match them directly in advance. So by doing this, we'll be able to shorten the time of matching with both providers and the beneficiaries. And then that way, we can help everyone coordinate much more faster and efficiently. Thank you.
Can you just, though, go deeper? Because I still don't really understand the difference in, or how you're thinking of building a network, because I do think it's very local versus, a national model, for example.
Yeah, definitely great question. So with a local network, that's definitely when I start first. So by partnering with an organization like Focusing Texas and Oregon Network specifically, we know they have very solid source that would demand supervisors every week. For instance, in Texas alone, there are roughly 2,500 deafblind customers who request support at least 5 times a week. So with that local network, building a relationship with them, but when we be able to have a more user coming up, we'll be able to scale quickly as a platform company. Because when people travel around, let's say Jason moves to Texas, or maybe goes to California next week, we'll be able to tap the local network by people who sign up platform. So they can say if we have a demands right there, they can accept the request automatically through our platform when they travel around. Does that answer the questions?
Not really, but we'll have another conversation maybe.
Absolutely. Please.
Yes. Can you just go through your revenue model again and the assumptions behind it in terms of the cost per hour, the expected number of hours per user? If that $3,100, is that something they're already spending money on, or is this incremental? Do they have the capacity to spend that much money on an annual basis?
Yeah, I can take that one. So actually, Misaro has been working for about several months now. We have gathered some information from the people that have already been users of this platform. So most of our assumptions come from that information. So here, this is for an average customer, and this includes several assumptions. If we want like after this, below, no, sorry, one before this one, Great, perfect, here. So actually, Misaro have 3 different services. This is the average charges for each one of these customers, and we have tested these prices to our current customers. This is the average usage. Some people with disability will use one of these services more than others, but this is what we estimate to be the average across our customer base. And this is how we get to the $3,100 per year in terms of revenue.
Just a quick follow-up. So are they already spending, is the user already spending that much money annually to secure these services? Or are these new services that they would be buying?
Yeah, I can take that question. Yes, so according to our pilot data, usually actually spend money already. But because we haven't launched for 4 years, so that $3,100 is actually our prediction based on our current patterns.
So 2 questions. One, how do you sort of oversee supporters and ensure that the right people are getting there? You mentioned training at some point, but you sort of went really quickly through it. And then, well, why don't you start there, and I can ask the next question when you finish.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm happy to address your question. So we designed a dedicated pipeline, like a support onboarding pipeline to onboard supporters. So as you can see, the red boxes are monitored by Misaro, so we oversee the interview and the final onboarding process, but we also see other process from application screening, training, and background check to the third-party staffing vendors. And particularly for the background check, we outsource to a company called Good Health, who will help us to do the due diligence for the providers in background check, such as criminal records, proof of insurance, as well as former employer referrals. So what's your next question? If that.
Well, I'll give you my next
Yeah.
question, but to me, it's also the training, right? That's sort of like, what are you guys training them on, or are these people that already, I assume, have been supporters and come with their own background? But then just so you know, in case this helps, the next question for me is like, have you thought about how insurance fits into this? One of the other teams that pitched, right, that was part of the model, and so it seems like these are services that are picked up by insurance companies, so why would somebody come to you instead of just using the insurance company?
Sure, I would be happy to take the first part of that question, if I may, and then I'll allow somebody else to address the insurance aspect of the question. So the first part of your question related to training. And how our platform works is, related to training, we do have rules and policies and procedures for how to select the applicants who have the requisite skills. We have expectations in each situation, psychological profiles, things like that. We certainly have our rules in terms of harassment policies and various procedures to make sure that our service providers are educated and ready to enter the situation in order to take care of providing the services on their own. We have people who are experienced and motivated to provide the services, and we, the interpreters, the communication facilitators, and the other specialists who have the requisite training when they sign onto the platform, and we guarantee that their qualifications are met.
Yep. And I can take the second part of the question about insurance. So when we reach out to the people working for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and mentioned that there are specific categories focused on translation and interpretations, in order to be eligible to reimburse those services, we need to have an agency or maybe providers directly provide those services through the company. And then company will get a reimbursement directly from CMS in that regard.
So I'm wondering, does this field have the same challenges as others with respect to employees and clients? So is there a lack of providers and support people within this space? And then if so, how does that differ from someone, say here in Chicago, going to the Lighthouse for the Blind to get these services delivered versus coming to you? Is there a difference there, or how does that sort of work?
Great question, and I can use one other example that we work with UChicago University. So in order to have providers like those two people today, we have to work with UChicago to find an agency. They work at the CHS, it's the Chicago Hearing Societies. So the problem for them is they have very unique network. They have only a certain number of providers can provide support. So if they don't have people available, they have to tell us to wait. So for instance, for our semifinals, I'll reach out to them 3 weeks in advance. And then they finally get back to us with providers, with 2. So things like that can vary very significantly. So what we try to make a difference here is by working with the entire platform, we bring everyone to the diverse pool of providers here. So agency itself, the not should constrain itself with only one network. They will be able to tap to every people in our platform that can increase the chance of matching the support easily.
So back to the network again. Do you think it would be easier to go into a geography and expand out to other disabilities, or take your hearing and vision disability and scale it to other geographies?
Yeah, definitely great questions. And then, so currently in our pilots, we observe the data. We have 5 major cities that have significant demand compared to others. So that include New York, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Dakota One regions, Seattle, and then Austin, and also one in Chicago actually. So for those geographics you want to target by having more users, including providers and beneficiaries join our platform as soon as they can. So that way we can scale our economy quickly to provide us support. So our initial success we define as to matching support in a shorter time frame compared to then to use our agency instead.
But are you just focusing on the one set of disabilities, or are you going to go to a broader set of disabilities for this group, for those geographies?
So after we
Sure, I could address that question as well. Actually, we're starting with 1 or 2 disability categories to make sure that we can match users with the qualified service providers. And then we're going to see what the needs are and assess the needs for other disability groups as well in order to broaden the scope of the services that we can provide in order to meet the specific needs of disability groups that are other than the ones we're focusing on now. So we do hope to make adjustments to broaden the focus later on once we have secured the ability and are confident in our ability to meet the needs of the populations we're serving currently.
Absolutely. And during our customer discoveries, we discovered that there's actually a lot of adjacent disability tech segment can tap into it as well. So for instance, we have interviewed many blind customers. The feedback is currently there's no such support at all in the market. For the tools they have available for them, they will not be able to communicate efficiently by reading the information through the app. So that's why when we reach out to them, we suggest Missouri could be one of the potential tools to help them. They said that is fantastic. If I order the coffee, I will be able to have Missouri tell me to order, providers tell me to arrange those things for me directly without even me thinking about
it. Sorry if I missed this, but it seems like part of what you're doing is replacing what organizations are currently doing in terms of the matching. And so is there a concern from the organizations that you'd actually be disrupting, taking over what they're doing, a bulk of their services, and therefore what's their incentive to work with you?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I want to define what organization means first. So there's 2 parts according to our discovery. So one is the organization that provides support that using the government funding. So for those organizations will be our target segments because they don't have a tool to provide a support within their networks. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna use our platform to help them streamline the work process. So that way they don't use email spreadsheet to track manually for everything here. That's a reason perfectly for deafblind Camp of Texas and also Bridges, Oregon for them. But the second part for organizations are actually agencies that provide similar support like us. So how we can differentiate ourselves from them? So first, we'll be able to make a support arrangement faster and cheaper. So for instance, to find support providers for Jason today, so actually school, UChicago have to pay $70 per hour. And that costs a lot of money for school as well. So what we can do is we charge cheaper, but also we'll be able to find a better support in a more quicker time to help them to satisfy their needs.
And if I may add, I did want to clarify briefly one situation or provide an example. A deafblind person had an appointment back in November. They couldn't find an interpreter for that appointment, so it was delayed till February. They couldn't find an interpreter for that appointment. It was delayed again until April, and once again they couldn't find an interpreter. Now finally they were able to provide interpreting services in May, but he waited 6 months for that service to be provided, and they couldn't find an interpreter. This platform, I believe, will assist in creating a broader network within each geographical location so that the services can be obtained more quickly and easily.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, our next team is Together Science.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy, and I'm here to introduce you to Together Science, an ed tech company that we formed to bring the modern tools for STEM learning to the next billion students. We're a mission-driven company, and we believe that the time is right for a paradigm change in the way that students learn STEM. We'll be developing a portfolio of products, and the first two will be Together Experiments and Together Math. And for today, we'll focus on Together Math. Together Math is a free tool for students to write math easily and beautifully, get instant feedback, and collaborate in real time. But before we say more about the tool, we want to talk to you about why there's such a need for it. So the average high school teacher teaches 6 classes per day, 24 students per class, and that's 144 students. So even if the teacher only spent 5 minutes grading each assignment, that's 720 minutes or 12 hours. So as a teacher, you end up absolutely buried in papers, grading homework until well into the evening, which leads to burnout and attrition. And the homework might look like this, or this, or this. So is it any surprise that when students actually get their homework back, half of all algebra students only get feedback on correctness, meaning they don't understand why they got something wrong, and the other half gets feedback just on completion, meaning they don't even know whether they got the problem correct. And for teachers, that's a missed opportunity to understand whether the student actually grasped the concept. And so if the student didn't understand how to do something before handing the homework, they're also not getting it now. So Algebra is going to be the starting point for our product because this is the class where these problems with doing math on pencil and paper really start to matter. Algebra is the foundation for students' future success in STEM, and it's also the single most failed class in high school as well as community college, but with failure rates between 30 and 80% depending on where you are. Students who fail algebra are not going to graduate, and they're certainly not going to start going into STEM careers. And this problem matters much more for the current generation of students more than ever because students are about 10 percentile points behind where they would have been if the COVID-19 pandemic had not happened. And this is especially true for students of color and students coming from lower income backgrounds. And research shows that digital tools do improve math scores, and the most effective kind of digital tool gives students individualized, intelligent feedback beyond just correctness or completion. And our solution is Together Math, an online editor for math homework. It helps students and teachers in many ways. It makes math easy to enter, and we make it look beautiful. The tool can verify the correctness and let the student know when they made a mistake, or help the teacher quickly see what the student isn't getting. Students can collaborate with each other in real time, live on the same document. And we have mechanisms for teachers to distribute work to students and for students to make an authenticated submission with additional data for the teachers to see. We've also built in tools like a calculator for students and teaching tools for giving hints in the document, as well as presentation mode, and much more. And our drag and drop functionality makes doing math easier and more intuitive. So here you can see us dragging that 7x from the left to the right-hand side. And just to be clear, these are all real screen captures from the actual product, which is currently fully functional and works for algebra and a number of other use cases. So just giving you a second to take a look at our product functionality. All right. So unfortunately, while there are a number of ed tech tools available on the market, none of them currently meet the needs that students and teachers currently have when it comes to step-by-step feedback, collaboration, and that flexibility to actually work on any problem and get credit for any valid thought process. And to validate our ideas, we've launched our product in alpha for 20 students, and separately, we're building a pilot program with YMCA Seattle, and also working on an additional pilot with unanimous approval from the math department at Bishop Kamboni College in Uganda. We've also interviewed and given product demos to educators and students. And overall, the feedback was overwhelmingly in favor of the ability to provide individualized feedback, streamline grading and teaching, and to help students engage with concepts and not mechanics through things like our drag and drop option. So now quickly transitioning to how this can work as a business. One thing to emphasize here is that we worked really hard to make it feasible to offer this for free to as many students as possible. And so my co-founder Gunnar actually figured out a creative way to reduce our tech infrastructure costs to less than 5 cents per user per year so that ad revenue alone can keep the business sustainable. And there are multiple analogs that confirm that this freemium direct-to-consumer model can actually work in ed tech. And one of the analogs is Mathway. So Mathway is purely a math solver that answers math homework questions. It's free, ad-funded, and was acquired for $100 million. And this is for a product that teachers actively disapprove of and think of as cheating. Really. So in our case, because we're helping students learn instead of actually giving them the answers, we believe that educators will actually be able to see the potential learning outcomes, and they'll want a way to actually remove the ads from the experience. And beyond that, from the freemium version, we'll also offer presentation mode for teaching. We'll have an easy-to-use document management system for those hundreds of student papers. And we'll have advanced analytics on live student behavior as they're solving problems. And teachers will also be able to share and receive content with students and with each other through our platform. So for free users, we're projecting about $2.66 in annual revenue from ads for each student that does all of their math homework on our platform. For subscription users, we'll charge $1 per month to keep our prices well below the vast majority of edtech providers. So again, the vast majority of freemium businesses only make money from paying customers. But because we have almost no fixed costs and very low infrastructure costs, every single user interaction will be financially net positive. Our initial target market will be the 8.5 million algebra students in the US. And after launching in the US, we'll also expand internationally, starting with other English-speaking countries. And because math is done almost identically, regardless of language, it'll be easy to translate to reach additional markets after that. And beyond high school algebra students, there are opportunities to expand beyond that target market with regard to educational setting, subject area, and also user type. And we'll reach teachers through booths and presentations at professional conferences, as well as paid ads on social media. And teachers will also hear about the tool from their employers as well as from their colleagues. We'll also acquire student users directly through SEO and social media, as well as through a math game that we've actually developed as a gateway. Students would also hear about the tool from each other and from their teachers. We're positioning ourselves for product-driven growth, meaning that we'll improve the tool relentlessly so that as many users as possible are truly delighted by the product and share that delight with other people. Our goal is to reach 20% of the algebra market in the US, as well as 7% of the available international market by 2027. We expect paid marketing to be the biggest driver of our costs, but really expecting that organic growth through word of mouth to get us to those 4 million users by 2027. And this projected 6.2 million in profits is not even accounting for things like in-app purchases, a content marketplace, and working with partners on things like professional training or textbook enhancements, which are all things that we can also look forward to in the future. So to fuel user growth, we're asking for a $300,000 investment to fund our initial marketing, and also to help with developing localization, improving UX design, and premium features. So far, we've already come a long way since incorporating last year. We have a fully functional product that we're testing with students who continuously give us valuable feedback, and we've developed a math game and published it on our website. From here, we're looking forward to continued product refinement, launching in the US and expanding to additional markets, providing app and subscription options in 2023, and finally selling to institutions when we get the evidence to convince them. Along the way, we'll track the success of our product along these 3 pillars of convenience, scale, and impact. So for convenience, we know from real user testing that using our product can save up to 75% of the time it currently takes to finish a homework assignment. And in terms of grading, we can automate that almost entirely. So we want to help our users do this on as many documents as possible and scale it to as many people as possible and help them all collaborate with each other. On the impact side, we believe that having this ability to experiment freely, show their work easily, and get instant feedback will lead to more engagement in math class and more confidence to go into STEM. And because the feedback is individualized for each student, we believe that all test scores will go up, but it'll be especially true for students who are left behind by traditional approaches to STEM learning. We'll also alleviate teacher shortfalls by making their jobs more satisfying and helping them scale up their impact. So in the long run, as a company, we'll start with the free version of Together Math, and then introduce subscriptions, followed by launching our other product, Together Experiments, and we'll become a content marketplace for teachers and integrate with curriculum companies. Ultimately, we'll become the go-to math homework tool for millions of students, and then bring some of the same concepts from our first product to classroom science experiments as well. And our team combines experience across education, technology, and data science. Gunnar was an engineering leader at Microsoft, and most recently worked as a high school science teacher. And he currently works on Together Science full-time. For me, I had a pretty nonlinear journey from actually winning state-level math competitions to actually really being discouraged to ever doing math again. And finally returning to STEM as a data scientist when I discovered the right tools. And I'm also planning to join Together Science full-time after graduation. And finally, Gabby completed her undergrad studies to be a high school English teacher, and she has experience working at the district level in K-12 education here at CPS, and also has experience in nonprofit work overseeing after-school programming for elementary and high school students. And finally, our advisors are senior technology leaders with experience in edtech, machine learning, databases, and freemium software, as well as an expert in curriculum development. Thanks for listening, and Gabby and I will take your questions. Please.
So that was a very confident presentation, but what worries you, or what do you perceive your biggest challenges to actually, implement that?
Absolutely. I think we've talked a lot about this as a team, and I think the biggest question that people we've spoken to have asked us was, how will you make sure that students actually use the product, and especially the students that need it the most? So we see that as our biggest challenge, but also the one that we're most excited to tackle. And I'm sure Gabby can add on a lot to sort of our marketing approach, but I think the reason that's the biggest challenge is in terms of some of our sort of advisors, a lot of people don't believe that students want something that helps them learn. Like they believe that initial market might be kind of small. And we think that might be true, but there are a lot of analogs on the market, such as Quizlet and Grammarly, that serve no other purpose except to help people get better grades and learn and things like that, right? So those platforms have tens of millions of users. And what we're trying to do is sort of emulate things like their SEO strategy, emulate things like their marketing strategy, and try to get to that level and use some of those network effects from becoming a larger platform to drive even more user adoption. And I think in terms of outreach as well, I think it's not just, let's appeal to everyone. I think it's let's find the students who have the least level of confidence in math. And for that, we're really looking to partner with tutoring organizations, especially for low-income students and other disadvantaged students, so that we have these people who are directly working with students who don't have confidence in math. So that's sort of our initial thought process, but certainly, really excited to actually tackling this challenge head on. Go ahead.
Yes, is there parental involvement? Because maybe I missed it. But I didn't hear if parents were involved in encouraging the student to do this or making sure the student was doing it after they've agreed to do it.
So is your question, how will we engage the parents?
Is there, I found as a parent that I had to make my daughters do their homework. Okay.
Make your child do that.
Yeah. I only have daughters, okay? But so if somebody signs up for this, what role do parents play, or guardians, if any?
Got it. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, sorry, I only have girls.
And I'll be the first to admit that when I was growing up, I hated doing homework. I basically never did my math homework. And when Gunnar and I were talking about this tool, and I think this actually was confirmed in a lot of our customer interviews, was this is the tool that will make doing homework addictive, because you will always get to the right answer, right? All you have to do is make a start. You keep going. We'll give you all of the tools and all of the validation to get you to that end result. And you'll always have that instant feedback to keep you on track, and that positive reinforcement to say, hey, you're on the right track. Here are some hints if you're not, right? And doing that over and over helps the student realize, I'm on this truth-seeking exercise, and I'm going to get to the bottom of things. And that amount of validation is something they will have never experienced anywhere else in their other math homework. So I think that's one piece, right? But in terms of the parents' involvement, I think one really powerful aspect of this one, I was on TikTok doing research, right? And there's this parent who said on her TikTok that She didn't graduate from high school. She doesn't remember how to do algebra, right? And she really wants to help her daughter do math homework. And the really powerful thing about our tool is the parent doesn't actually need to know algebra to help their student with homework anymore. All they have to do is sit together. We'll draw that little red box automatically for the particular line where the student got something wrong. And the parent, without even knowing that much algebra, can say, hey, here's the place where we can work on this, right? Let's look this up. And from there, without any prior training, and this is true for tutors, this is true for teachers, that's the part where that collaboration happens, and that's the part that I think parents will become really excited by as well.
Yeah, and Chen, just to add on to that, I think just to make sure that everyone understands the way that it's going to work, we will have sample problems on there to serve as additional practice for students that need it. But it'll also function just for any student to do their homework on as well. So the same way as if a teacher assigns you to write an essay for homework, you go into a Google Doc or a Word document and you type your essay in there. That'll be the same functionality here, where if you have problems assigned from a math book or if you get a worksheet, you would take those problems and put them into the site and use it to actually do your homework. So I think it's just serving as a tool to do your homework in, or to do the additional practice. So I think it would be the same thing if a student doesn't want to do their homework by hand. This will hopefully make it a little bit easier for them and make it the time savings for them to encourage them to get that homework done. Yeah.
I think William, oh, go ahead.
Thank you, William. Tasha, take note. Just quick, can you just walk me through that again in terms of how the tool works? Because I'm certainly not an ed tech expert, but it seems like a lot of times what kids are learning or how they're being taught online or through a tutor doesn't match what's happening in the classroom, right? And that's a frustration for teachers. How do you ensure that the way you're teaching them through the tool aligns with what they're learning in the classroom and the way the teacher's teaching in the classroom?
That's an interesting question. Do you mind flipping to the collaborations?
Mm-hmm.
And while she does that, I think, so I keep having conversations with people. I was having a conversation with actually my Uber driver, and he said, I hate the way that the way something was taught in the class is different from the way that I was helping my daughter with a particular problem. And honestly, our philosophy is if you got to the right answer and your method is logically correct, why does it matter that it's like a different approach from the specific thing that the teacher told you to do, right? Because when the student is actually doing the testing, in that case, actually, the only thing that matters is getting to the right answer. And what we're helping students do is we're ensuring that every single step they're taking is valid from sort of a mathematical logic perspective, right? So the way that this is working here is we're starting with that initial line, right? And the student is sort of working through that problem. They made a mistake on line 3, and our sort of remote collaborator, Alma, says, hey, I know how to fix this mistake. She fixes it. And on the right-hand side, that actually can automatically populate and describe what it is that the student is doing for each step. And so one of the really powerful things here is the student can turn in this assignment, and instead of trying to decipher what it is that the student did, and I've been a grader before, so I know it's incredibly challenging to understand student logic, right? And when this pre-populates, the teacher will be able to see, oh, this is the logic, right? And the tool says that all of these steps are valid. And we actually hope that this will actually change the conversation as far as how do I grade, right? It's not just did they do it in the specific way that I told them to. It's, well, actually the mathematical logic is sound. They got to the right answer. Everything is correct. And what this does is it really frees up the student's ability to go ahead and explore with a lot of different approaches, not just the specific one that they were taught in class. Does that answer your question? Thanks. William.
So my question, I guess, is, in be specific, sort of who's the customer? You know, here it seems like everybody could be the potential customer, but who's sort of your primary customer for this particular product?
Do you want to take this?
Absolutely. And yeah, so that is actually the beauty of the tool, is it literally can be anybody that's doing any kind of math homework. The target initially will be algebra, just because as we've talked about before, that's kind of that key step in being able to progress onto other types of math or other types of science. And there's 2 student types that we think are going to be the early adopters. So the one is the student that's struggling, that when they get their homework back, they just see that they got a bunch of red X's on their homework, but they don't know why they got things wrong. So using this system, they would be able to then go in, type in their homework, and they're going to see the line where they went wrong to be able to go back and correct it, and then they actually have that understanding. So for students that need that additional support, and we've talked about this, that it's students where your parents might not be home, they might not be there to help you, you don't have access to a tutor, teacher, all they do is give you that feedback that says, you got 3 out of 4 wrong, you don't know why you got that 4th problem wrong. The other student type that we think is going to be an early adopter to this is students that really see the time save function as the primary value that they're getting added. So a big thing for all of math homework is show your work, which sometimes can be 10 or 12 or 15 steps for one problem. And so being able to come in here, the system allows you to duplicate lines, so you're able to do that, or you're able to use the drag and drop function to just get your homework done up to 70% faster. And so students that are doing math homework, understand all the concepts, they're able to just come in here and knock it out really quickly. So we think those are going to be the 2 primary early adopters for this.
So just real quick, as a follow-up. So the students are the target. The customer, then you're saying, is the parents? I'm trying to figure out who's like buying this. My daughter wouldn't say I need help in math. And just, again, using my child, I'm going to be correct, wouldn't say, hey, I'm having problems here. Let me go online and find a program to purchase. She doesn't have any revenue or income. So it's the parent, I guess, or the teacher? I'm trying to figure like who's sort of pushing or purchasing the product.
So I think we have, maybe we didn't make it clear, and it's one of the things that's like closest to my heart, is that it's going to be free. It's a free website that anybody can use to do any of their own homework assignments. Teachers can also use it for free to input their own assignments, assign it to students. So really that, I know everybody says we really care about kids and we care about teachers, but like genuinely that is our mission above revenue, above anything else, is to make sure that we can make it free and keep it sustaining free so that anybody can use it. So yeah, we do see for students the primary way that they're going to find out about it. One of our analogs is Desmos, and what students were doing was going in and saying free online graphing calculator. So when they are looking for free online math formatting template, that'll be the way that they're going to find us. And then again, through those teachers, that if a teacher starts using it and they assign the assignments in there, then students will be using it to complete their homework as well. But yeah, free, free, free. Very important. We know teachers and students all need free supports.
Not sure who was first.
Yep.
So maybe in the back.
Thank you. Just to add to that, can you go through your advertising model and who the target audience is for the advertising and what kind of advertising you're kind of anticipating?
Do you mind flipping to the ads slide? Thanks.
Yeah, so currently we actually have that up and running. We have an ad broker. It's called AdPlug. I think we're going through multiple iterations and sort of going through different ad providers. But ultimately, the goal is to work with one that is catering to students, right? So all of the problems around privacy, all of the problems around age verification, our ad provider actually is cognizant of. So that's why this super awesome company is actually the one that we're most likely going to work with. And in terms of the ads, the screenshot that we showed you on one of the earlier slides was a real screenshot of one of the ads. So that was like, I think, Adobe product. I think there are some different ads for products that either students would want to use or teachers or parents as well, right? So anyway, the point is that we go through a third-party broker initially. They're actually doing all of that negotiations around who is serving up the ads. And then over time, as we become a bigger platform, one thing I do want to say is right now we're charging like 5 cents per 1,000 impressions, right? As we get to millions of students, we would be able to charge, $2, $5 for 1,000 impressions. And I think that's one of the other ways that we'll be able to keep ourselves sustainable as well.
But the agency understands that the audience are the students.
Correct. Yep. So this super awesome was spun out of a video game company. They know exactly how to work with students who see ads. Yep.
Thank you.
Bruce.
So full disclosure first, I've been in math education for 20 years, so I am totally going to try not to geek out on this. Do you also have all of the different elements of doing math? So for instance, supporting students, graphing problems, and a variety of things like that, or is it focused more on the procedural math side of things?
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind going to our PyScript
slide. Yes, so first of all, there are graphing capabilities. One of them is to directly embed something like Desmos. So that would take care of most of the graphing side. The other piece that we're like super excited about as data science nerds is PyScript, which is actually a new development where students can write, and I know students are not primarily going to do this, but some students will want to do something like write Python code to graph on their math homework, right? So they'll feel like they're really cool. They'll feel like they're doing cutting edge technology. This was released earlier this month, by the way, and we've already put it into our tool. And so for something like graphing, like 2 solutions, right? One is Desmos, or 3 solutions. One is to do it directly on our platform, and the third is to use something like Python to write Python code directly in Together Math, and just tap into actually limitless functionality when you're coding in Python as well. Rachel.
So what's to stop a competitor from just adding the worksheet capability into their already existing technology?
What do you mean by the worksheet capability?
Well, however you describe what you're doing, I call it I don't know, the math problem solving, but math, I can't remember, math chart or whatever you said your biggest competitor was, but even Khan Academy, right? Why couldn't they do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think maybe part of what you're getting at is patents. And so my co-founder Gunnar holds like 6 patents, and he said that that's not really the key here. Like the IP is not necessarily the key here. If someone really wanted to build something like this, they could hire a group of engineers, do it in a year. And in our case, we believe that someone who would do that, hire a team of engineers, work on it for a year, would absolutely be charging more for it than we are. We're providing it for free. So that's one of the...
The Khan Academy's free?
Well, Khan Academy is free, but they already have this whole ecosystem where they have a closed curriculum in the sense that they've already built in like the types of problems you're supposed to solve, like all of the infrastructure around the feedback that you're getting around those problems. And it doesn't really make sense for them to build a completely new ecosystem that does something different, like better, but like completely takes over the way that they're currently doing things. So that's really one of the reasons. But the other reason is our first mover advantage, right? So nobody else is currently doing this. All of the other tools that are kind of similar are doing it in a way where they're giving students the solution to a problem, right? I see Bruce nodding, so I must be right. And so the current approach is not to show work, it's to give students the answer. And the fact that they've had years and years to try to do this and haven't tells us that they don't see an opportunity in this. And we do, right? So by the time that they recognize the opportunity here, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of users, and we'll be better than them because both Gunnar and I are data scientists, and we'll be able to tap into our usage data and see what are the things that makes our platform sticky, what are the things that lead to better learning outcomes, and ultimately that's going to drive our user growth over time and give us that advantage as well.
Great. We are out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, ready for our last team presenting. Demi.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Lily, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Demi. We are so excited to share with you today how we're planning to build towards a food waste-free future. We are facing a climate crisis, and our venture Demi is on a mission to create a healthier planet by making composting the new normal. Sorry, is it? Sorry, okay. Because our planet needs a food waste revolution. When organic waste is sent to landfills, it becomes climate poison. Starved of oxygen, decomposing organics release methane, a greenhouse gas that is 30 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And because organics are the most common material found in landfills today, the carbon footprint of food waste in the US is larger than that of the entire airline industry. Composting generates carbon savings equivalent to taking 15 million cars off of the roads, but only 3% of food waste is composted today. And this is especially a problem in cities where there are no feasible options for apartments. Meanwhile, building managers are spending thousands on waste hauling, a process that's messy, costly, and unsustainable because of the food waste that's mixed in. As both residents and regulators become increasingly sustainability-minded, we think this landscape is at a tipping point for disruption. And through our own experiences and research that we've conducted, we validated that there is a demand for an urban composting solution. 99% of our respondents said that they care about sustainability, but only 10% engage with composting activities today. And 92% said that they would compost more if it was easier. Several of our respondents also said that they used to compost, but then had to stop once they moved into an apartment. And this was my exact experience as well. I grew up in Vancouver, composting with my dad in our backyard. And my father was sent to rice farms during the Cultural Revolution in China. And so for us, composting was about more than just sustainability. It was about honoring the earth and the food that we eat. And what we've realized is that while there's a growing number of urbanites that are looking to engage with sustainability, the existing composting solutions today have really high barriers for adoption. And if you live in an apartment, like 40% of Americans do, this is especially true because we don't have very much space. The solutions today also lack incentives to drive long-term adoption, which is why we hypothesize that most people don't compost today, despite knowing that it's better for our planet. What we need is a solution that can cultivate an entire culture of composting. And we want to create this change by working directly with residential buildings where we can leverage their existing infrastructure to provide an integrated solution that is both affordable and streamlined for end users, while also reducing waste management costs, increasing rent revenues, and attracting new tenants for building managers. This also allows for a business model that can be easily replicated as we look to expand it to new customer bases. I'll now hand it off to my co-founder, Andrew, who will walk us through exactly how Demi works.
Awesome, thanks, Lily. So we want to create this change by
I know, what's happening.
So the process starts when a building signs a contract with Demi, at which point we'll set up a convenient compost pickup area within the building. From there, residents of the building can choose to participate in Demi's composting program, at which point they'll start to receive sleek, biodegradable bins with personalized QR codes that allow us to track their composting metrics over time. They can fill these bins with their food scraps and then take it down to the pickup area at their convenience. From there, Demi picks up the composting bins weekly, scanning and weighing the bins to track those composting stats. We can then take the compost to our industrial composting partners who will turn that organic waste into nutrient-rich soil. So a core part of our offering that we want to highlight is our bins. And as our CFO, Ethan, will show, these make composting suitable for urban dwellers. They're both sleek and space efficient while designed to minimize both odor and smell and spill. So there are two key components to the bins. The first is a rigid bioplastic bin that we estimate to last about a year. This serves as more of a permanent outer shell. The second component is an inner bin liner made of molded fiber that inserts into the bioplastic. These liners are filled and replaced on a weekly basis, helping to prevent leakage and odor accumulation over time. Both the bioplastic and the molded fiber are 100% compostable, so they can be composted along with the food scraps that they contain at the end of their respective lives. And also at Demi, we want to do more than make composting easier. We want to create a paradigm shift where composting is mainstream, and we believe our mobile app can help with this. So the app will provide educational resources explaining what you can and can't compost and explaining how composting works. And because each bin liner has a QR code, we can show metrics on the exact environmental impact that each user is having, helping them stay engaged. We make composting fun by offering rewards for diligent composting and help build community by allowing them to share the composting stats with their friends and neighbors. So how is Demi different than existing solutions? The first 4 columns here would be our main competitors. They do provide bins and offer pickup service, but they focus largely on single-family homes and don't integrate their solutions directly with apartment buildings. Their bins tend to be large, bulky 5-gallon buckets that don't suit an apartment space and tend to accumulate odor over time. And lastly, the costs are prohibitively expensive because they depend only on the individuals paying for it and not the apartment buildings. Lomi and Zara are high-tech devices that actually perform the composting within the user's apartment unit. But they're really, really expensive, and most urban residents don't actually have a use for the soil that it creates at the end of the process. So only Demi really offers a way to make composting truly mainstream. These other solutions mainly serve customers that are willing to go through extensive time, cost, and effort to compost, but are never going to reach the average urban resident. So there is a large market opportunity for Demi. There are over 11 million residential buildings in the United States with 20 or more units. 58,000 of those are in Cook County alone. We've defined our SOM as the number of buildings with 20 or more units in these major Chicago neighborhoods, representing an initial opportunity of 10.6 thousand buildings, or $170 million in annual revenue in just Chicago. So we can dive a bit deeper into the business model now. We collect revenue from buildings based on their size at a rate of $15 per unit per month. So costs based on the material costs of the bioplastic and molded fiber bins, and we estimate that 1 molded fiber bin will be used per resident per week. Compost pickup costs include a driver's wages, gas, and vans, and we can keep these much lower than competitors by targeting densely populated urban buildings. And we pay our industrial composting partners $50 per ton of waste processed. And lastly, other costs include ongoing customer support for buildings, corporate salaries at scale, and carbon offsets purchased to make our vehicle fleet net zero carbon emissions. So with all this in mind, we're left with a very favorable margin of 55%. We estimate that it'll take just under 3 months to recoup the initial customer acquisition costs, and are left with a LTV to CAC ratio of 5.6, assuming that a building stays with us for 5 years on average. So over the next 5 years, we expect our revenue and EBITDA to grow rapidly, reaching $103 million and $74 million respectively by year 5. Upfront investments in more vehicles, injection molds for bin production, and app development support will allow us to increase our growth velocity, lower our variable costs, and ultimately reach our lofty goals of getting into as many apartment buildings as possible. Our current models expect us to have acquired 6,650 buildings by year 5 and to have paid off our initial ask after a year of operating with just 25 buildings as customers. I'll now pass it off to Christina, our COO, to talk about the go-to-market strategy.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. In order to meet our projected unit economics, we've outlined an initial go-to-market strategy that lays out our growth plan over the next several years. So throughout our pilot and rollout phases of our plan, we aim to solidify our operations and customer acquisition processes within the Chicago area. And within our growth and expansion phases, we aim to scale those operations we aim to scale those operations and processes to other target cities in the US while leveraging a network of national property management companies that we've developed and tapping into their portfolios in other cities. We are currently in our pilot phase right now and bootstrapping our operations to ensure that we're continuing to learn and really prove out our proof of concept. As Andrew briefly mentioned earlier, the way that we track and measure our impact KPIs will be embedded directly into how we operate, whether that be through user metrics, app metrics, research and surveys, or partnerships. By incorporating those measurements directly into our operations, it provides transparency and visibility into the difference that we and our users are making in the world of food waste. In order to implement the plan that we've laid out, we put together a team that brings experience in strategy execution, software development, engineering, go-to-market strategy, logistics and operations optimization, marketing, and real estate. While we all bring our own respective experiences and skill sets to the roles that we're filling at Demi, we're all united in our passion for Demi's mission to create a composting solution that is more accessible and mainstream for urban dwellers. We are also fortunate to be supported by a number of industry experts that we've met along our journey and who see tremendous value in our work. And in addition to those partnerships, we plan to leverage the experts and resources across our broader advisory network as well. Since our inception just 5 months ago in January 2022, our progress and traction has been promising. Some key highlights are that we just signed our first pilot contract. We've done key research to substantiate individual user interests and willingness to pay. We've developed and iterated on our bin prototypes you saw earlier in our presentation. We began development on our mobile app. We've established relationships with our local composting partners. And finally, we've been named recipients of 2 grants. One is the C200 Award, and the second is the Sustainability Fund from the Institute of Real Estate Management. We are now seeking to raise $250,000 to fund our initial startup costs and 12 months of runway to accelerate Demi's growth throughout Chicago. These funds would be allocated towards injection molds to manufacture our bins at scale, the build and development of our mobile app, the purchase of a truck and storage unit, the investments into sales and marketing, and full-scale operations of our rollout phase. I'll now pass it off to Lily to wrap us up.
Thanks, Christina. We passionately believe that we've built something truly special here at Demi that will allow us to break down the traditional barriers of composting and completely disrupt the way that we as a society approach food waste. We validated these beliefs through extensive customer discovery and market research and believe that this is the opportune time for us to bring our product to market, given the global and regulatory focus on emissions. In closing, at Demi, we believe that each of us has an important role to play in combating this climate crisis. Our name and logo is meant to be reflective of the partial responsibility that we all have in the circular economy that we wish to create for our future. We believe that big impact starts with small choices and that a food waste-free future begins with Demi and hopefully also with you. Thank you for your time, and we welcome any questions you might have for us.
I'm going to take this up there.
And we'd also like to welcome
take a look. You're welcome to.
Uma, our Chief of Business Development, and Ethan, our CFO. We'll pass the bin around for you guys to see. Yes, Rich.
Maybe you showed this, but I didn't see it. There are already services for door-to-door kind of, trash, kind of just general waste and recycling pickup in apartments, buildings, and what would keep them from just adding composting to their services?
Yeah. So if we could go, perfect. Thank you, Uma. So a lot of the existing compost hauling solutions that are out there today operate on primarily a D2C model. So they generally just service individual homes. That's what the 4 competitors that we mentioned earlier who do traditional compost hauling do. And so when they try and service an entire building, it becomes much more logistically complicated for them because the model that they're used to operating is primarily D2C. We've asked them why they haven't done B2B yet, and the reason that they've explained is that trying to acquire buildings as customers generally tends to be more costly. It requires a sales force and requires industry knowledge, and because they weren't built to operate that way, it just hasn't been worth their investment so far. We believe this is changing due to changing resident and tenant preferences, the demand for increased sustainability, regulatory momentum that's happening, and just the need to compete to attract more tenants. And so we believe that if we were to go head-to-head with one of the existing compost hauling services out there, we would be able to win out in an apartment service because we're the only model that has been specifically designed to target that market.
Maybe I didn't ask the question accurately. So I'm speaking about in apartment buildings, there are kind of door-to-door trash and recycling services. So you literally, there are bins that are provided for you and you pay a monthly fee, or it's baked into your rental rates, and you literally just set the bin outside your door and people come and get it.
I see. Like
and
trash
dispose
bottler.
it. Yes, and I'm just wondering why wouldn't they get into composting?
Yeah, that's another great question. Do you mind going to the next slide? Perfect, thank you. So a lot of what these services do are they are experts at servicing the last mile solution. And so what they do is pick up the compost the recycling or the trash and then send it to the processing plant. And what we're trying to do is service the first to last step. We're providing them with these compostable bins that nobody else has created yet. We're providing them with a mobile app for engagement. We're providing them with educational resources. It's really an entire holistic end-to-end experience that is trying to create and cultivate this culture of composting, making it easier, accessible for everybody to start engaging with it. So while there are other services that might, do the recycling and the waste, they really are specializing in that last mile delivery rather than the whole end-to-end solution. Yes.
So I'll start by saying that I am a condo composter, and I totally churn my compost every time. So I'll start there because I like the idea. But I guess my question is, I don't understand the bin. So if you go to Europe, people compost in townhouses and condos all the time, and you have a little plastic bin, and you compost the bag. The bag is compostable, and you just throw it out every day. My brother does this,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
So why are you spending the money on a bin when it's pretty simple elsewhere?
Right, so I can speak to the bin a bit. So we all have tried composting, and we've talked to a lot of people that compost in Chicago. Using the bags creates a significant friction point because you have to replace them each time. They tend to get smelly. They rip very easily. They're not like the Glad Super Stretch things. I've had a lot of them like rip and make a huge mess in my apartment. So there is a large hassle to that. And then with the bins, like because it's a more rigid liner, you can also add the QR code that allows them to track those stats more easily. And then it just kind of creates a better user experience overall.
Please, Jim.
I guess kind of going off of Rich and in looking at what you all had put up, you had, if your target is apartment buildings and you had sent out X number of requests and got one back, my concern is your ability to be able to actually gain users, clients. Also, particularly, again, I grew up in a waste management business. So within a lot of cities, municipalities, they're regulated with the apartment buildings of how and who can pick up. So it might not be just one user that you have to be able to get to adopt this to be able to even start to scale or get clients. How are you addressing that? Because I don't think your pilot kind of defends that you could scale that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Christina, do you want to talk about what we've learned from some building managers and then also talk about the portfolio network effect that would help us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from our conversations with the larger property management groups that we've been communicating with, a lot of the concern is less actually about adoption and the scale of residents opting into the service. It's a little bit actually more towards seeing demonstrated outcomes. Given that we're so early stage, we don't have that track record of demonstrated outcomes. So actually in our conversations, the adoption rate from the residents hasn't been as big of a concern from that perspective. And then the second aspect.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've also learned about larger buildings and larger property management companies is that once they acquire a preferred vendor, they really like to use that same preferred vendor across all of the different properties that they manage because they want to just have a streamlined experience. So we think once we're able to get into one of these larger property management companies, it becomes much easier for us to scale to all of the portfolio buildings that they might have within their company.
Well, but again, what part of your competition is, it's who's already servicing that building for the waste management, because they're usually the portal for the business manager. So they're going to have some incentive to, if they're not partnered with you, to block you. So help me with how if you've seen that or you don't see that as a threat.
Yeah, so just to clarify your question, it's how we respond in partnership potentially with other like traditional waste management companies. Yeah, so I think down the line there really is an opportunity for us to potentially partner with the traditional waste haulers, but as we mentioned before, it's really about creating this end-to-end experience, and none of the waste management companies today have really found a way to solution or innovate for that first section of creating something that can be put in an apartment to help an urban resident compost. So if down the line we want to partner with a potential waste management hauling company, that could be feasible as well, but there's always that front piece, and along with our mobile app, along with the bins, that will really help drive composting adoption across the board that those other waste management companies haven't really thought to solution yet. And most likely won't because it's not their bread and butter. Rachel.
So who is going to stay with the business, or who's going to take another job?
Great question. So we are all actually currently pursuing our masters. The 4 of us are doing our MBAs at Booth, and Ethan is doing a master's in operation research at Columbia. We are all willing to decelerate our master's education program to work on this as much as possible over the next year or so. Otherwise, we all graduate next year, and we'll be working on this full time after that. Yeah. But as I mentioned, we're happy to decelerate to continue working on this. Sunny.
I just want to make sure I understand the process. So you'll go to a building, you'll meet with the building manager, you will say, hey, we're offering this service. Will you promote that to your people who live in the building? And then they will have to promote it. If I lived in a condo building for a long time, the business manager would have to promote it and let me know this is an available service. And then they would charge me $15. But who's collecting the $15 on a monthly basis from me? And then you're gonna give me the bin, and then weekly you're gonna give me a new liner to replace my bin. So somebody's gotta figure out how I get that new liner every week.
Yes.
Right, so just logistically, just help me play that through.
Completely. Christina, do you want to talk about the drop-off or collection
absolutely.
sites?
Yeah, so the drop-off sites, the way that we've designed the drop-off sites is really to be integrated into the building as much as possible so that the residents are really not really going out of their way from their daily routine. And that goes to also cover the pickup of new liners as well. So in the drop-off sites, we'll have these like nice little smart locker setups. And whenever a resident drops off their full container of food scraps, they will be able to pick up a brand new one. So again, that kind of replenishment is as seamless as possible and integrated into the building process. And then, was there another part of your question about?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I can
Go
answer.
ahead.
Right, the first part of your question, you were asking, who's paying for it. So our business model, the building management is paying for it. So in the case of a condo building, that would be the HOA organization would decide, as a building, we are going to purchase this service. And the rate for the building is a function of the number of units that are in the building. So for example, an apartment building with 100 units would be paying a $1,500 monthly fee to DIMI. And then tenants in the building would have the opportunity, free of charge to the tenant, to opt into that service because the cost is being taken on by the building itself.
Tasha, please.
Yeah, follow-up question. I'm not sure that I understand how the app fits in and why the app is important. So because you described the target user as being motivated to compost, but just logistically challenging. So can you explain that part?
Absolutely. So this is a question we've gotten a lot about the app. So there's a really cool use case that we found in California. There's a company called LA Compost. California is an area where composting is mandated and a lot more common. So there's another company, FerraZero. They created a simple web app, and all it did was show users just metrics on the impact their compost was having, or their habits. So things like how much organic waste are you diverting from landfills, how many CO2 emissions have you saved, and the results were outstanding. And you can kind of read them here. It increased participation 50%, got a lot more people composting, doubled the amount of actual organic matter being deposited into the composting facilities. So we think that this is a really important part of really creating that culture change where everybody gets to compost. And we also understand that maybe there are some users that aren't as interested in the app. No one's going to force you to use the app at the end of the day. You can just use the composting service without the app, and you don't have to pay attention to the stats if you don't want to.
Please.
Are the main incentives for a building to purchase this marketing for their residents or new residents, or are there other incentives, i.e., without knowing much about this at all, but like LEED certification or other things where this can play a role in the actual business of their property management as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we see 3 main areas where we can provide value to the building managers to help them invest in DEMI. The first is around, as you mentioned, reputational, so helping them achieve LEED certification status. WELL certification is another one. And once you have certain sustainability kind of accolades, there also are tax incentives and financial breaks that could help drive that further. The other is around convenience, as we expect that more states and cities will start to mandate composting. Getting ahead of this and having a streamlined solution that makes it mess-free and easy is another area that we think we could help position value for building managers. And then finally, and probably most importantly, is financial. And we see a way that building managers can pull on two different levers to make a significant return on an investment in DEMI. And this includes reduction in waste management costs, traditional waste management costs, and then an increase in rent revenues. And you'll see that with just a $20 rent revenue increase across, if they're able to get to 100% adoption rates, they can have an ROI that is up to 90% on their investment in our company. So, please.
So the social impact here is based on the amount of waste that's going to get diverted away from landfill into something that's a product that's going to go into another part of the environment. So the question is, I know with a lot of other recycling streams, there's an issue of contamination of the stream so that the recycled product actually is hard to do. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with the idea that people put the wrong stuff in the bin and basically taint the compost stream?
Yeah, I can take that question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, contamination is definitely something that we're hyper-focused on as well. And there are two ways that we're looking to address it. I think first and foremost, we'll just say composting is actually much easier than recycling. Recycling, there's actually a very cumbersome sorting process that actually makes contamination very prevalent. For composting, it's actually not as bad because pretty much any organic matter can be composted right off your plate. But the two main ways that we're looking to address the contamination issue is one, through education, and the second is by using industrial composters. So through education, again, we said it's as easy as possible, or it's very easy, but in order to reach that average urban dweller who may not understand what composting is, we're going to be providing educational, very easy to consume educational materials either through the bins and also integrated into our mobile app so they can quickly look up what can and cannot be composted. The second aspect that I mentioned is the industrial composters. So by going to an industrial composting site, they're generally more forgiving about the types of items that they're able to compost, as opposed to if you were to just do backyard composting. There are things like meat bones, like fat that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in your backyard composting that industrial composters will accept. So it really makes it easy for those who are new to composting to be able to adopt it as quickly as possible.
And we are out of time. Thank you very much.
Hey, you guys killed it. Good job. I'm gonna go get it.
So this concludes our presentations. Please join me in thanking the judges for spending the time and asking such great questions today. And let's congratulate all the teams who presented today as well. So judges, after you fill out your forms, we're going back to 219 where we had lunch for deliberations. Everybody else, you're invited to reception in room 104. And when the deliberations are over, we will be down to share the exciting news of who are the prize winners. And take your stuff. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today.
Oh yeah, and a reminder too, if you haven't voted on our Audience Choice Award, please make sure you take part in the Audience Choice Award, whether you're on the live stream or with us here in the room.
Mic check, 1, 2. Check, check, mic check.
and advice on symptom management strategies that could help me manage my health. So we solved this problem by creating a curated search engine database of symptom management strategies filled with information crowdsourced from the long COVID patient community, as well as vetted by medical experts. And the third problem I faced was figuring out what was the relative impact of each of these strategies on my health so that I could focus less on symptom management and more on just living. We solved this problem by harnessing the analytical power of wearable devices. Now, long COVID is the pandemic after the pandemic. So if you're interested in helping long haulers return to the things that matter, please vote for us for the Audience Choice Award. Thank you.
Now go back out there and tell me if you hear it again. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is there a buzz in it?
side presented by Chicago booth.
Audio. And now let's go here and over there. No, here.
Do you think that
some of these computers would have VU meters, so that you can see if YouTube is working right, as far as checking your stream.
Test 1, 2.
It's working. It's working. All that conversation we're doing right now, it's coming out now. Oh yeah. Hello.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Signing off.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Goal setting. Intrinsic motivation really matters. Okay? People are excited to pursue goals that have immediate rewards, that are enjoyable to pursue. If you measure how important is a goal for a person and how much they get pleasure from pursuing it, guess what? The pleasure, the intrinsic motivation, the feeling that this is the right thing for me to do is a better predictor of persistence. We see this with New Year's resolutions. Okay? We have now followed people over an entire year, so they set the resolutions in January, and then we follow up every few months after up to the following November. And what we find is that the extent to which people say this is something that I enjoy doing predicts their persistence more than the extent to which they say this is something that is important for me. Now, notice, no one sets a New Year's resolution because they can't think about something more pleasurable to do. Okay? No one sets a New Year's resolution to watch more TV or eat more ice cream. Okay? People set resolutions to exercise more, to eat better, to do better at work, things that they want to do because they're important for them, because there's some long-term benefit. Yet the immediate pleasure, okay, the individual differences between how much one person likes doing it and the other person does not like doing it, that's what predicts stamina, that's what predicts persistence. Same for how much time people spend on studying or exercising, same for consumption of healthy food. People decide to eat certain foods if they like these foods, if they know how to prepare them in a way that they will enjoy them, they will eat these foods. If they don't enjoy the foods, they will persist for maybe a week or two and then drop the goal. Okay, so we find that intrinsic motivation really matters, and that if you bring intrinsic motivation to the goal, that is, if you make it more enjoyable at the moment, you have better chances. We find that when we let children listen to music while they were doing their homework, we find that when we encourage the adults to find the healthy food that they enjoy, the exercise routine that brings them pleasure, or the study materials that are most interesting for them. Do people know?
CEO and founder of Immersionnet, and we transform video games with historical settings into immersive learning experiences. Right now, most schools fail to successfully teach skills like problem solving, adaptability, critical thinking, because they're best taught through active learning experiences, which are generally only available to the privileged few. I experienced firsthand the benefits of such experiences in my education. I grew up a total history nerd, a major in history in college, and I was fortunate enough to study abroad in places like Greece. While there, I learned these 21st century transferable skills that are so hard to teach but key to long-term career success. From there, I began to dream of a world where this type of learning experience wasn't only for the privileged few. Now, through Immersionnet, that dream can become reality. Here, you see a clip of a video game we're planning to adapt. We build upon the already vivid and accurate historical setting and strip out the original quest lines and capacity for violence, and we insert our own educational quest lines focused on teaching historical content and skills like creative decision making. Through these partnerships with gaming companies, we streamline the production cost and production time needed to produce immersive learning experiences, and from there we provide those learning modules to schools across the country. Our team of developers is currently working hard with our curriculum writers to build our medieval history prototype module through a video game called Kingdom Come Deliverance. We have a mixture of private and charter schools that are set to pilot this next school year. From there, our key partner, Ubisoft, who owns the majority of relevant adaptable content, such as the one shown earlier, has indicated that they want us to build upon their games to create a comprehensive set of world history learning modules. In order to bring this dream to fruition, though, we need the help of people like you. So please help us help teachers bring the transferable skills that are needed to succeed in modern day life to the broader public.
Hello, my name is Nisa and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cashless. Cashless is a managed barter platform that's connecting small underserved businesses to resources. Today, we're operating on 2 different continents across 3 different countries. We've raised $500,000 in in-kind resources and a friends and family round, and currently raising a seed round. There's 31 million small businesses in the United States. They make 41% of employment for the United States population. And yet, 20% of these small businesses fail every year. And 80% of them, of the minority-owned businesses, fail every year. This number is staggering. It's clear that these financial systems that we've relied on in the past just don't behave the way we want them to, that they have in the past. They're unstructured, hard to navigate, or just unsupported. And it's no wonder they just were not built to support the current entrepreneurial landscape. And that's why we built Cashless. Customers simply sign onto the platform, invite their fellow employees to collaborate, and they post an advert for a job they need done, and we simply match them in minutes, just like that. They no longer have to post on platforms like Facebook Marketplace and then wait for somebody to respond. We match them accurately and quickly. They can then use this money that they would have otherwise used for other services to plow back into the business and focus on growing the business. Our mission is to create an alternative financial marketplace for small businesses to be able to obtain resources and thrive. We aim to help 100,000 small businesses by the end of 2023. Cashless has started a revolution, and we hope that you'll join us and help small businesses not only survive, but thrive.
Kids across the country, particularly those from under-resourced communities, are in mental health crisis. 44%, close to 1 in 2 high schoolers reported feeling persistently sad and hopeless during the last year. Schools are our most potentially powerful line of defense for students in mental health crisis, but they're vastly under-equipped to provide services at the scale and intensity students require. My name is Prachi, and I'm the founder of Counselors for America. Our mission is to provide therapy at school to any kid who needs it. We're building a nonprofit that embeds full-time mental health providers in schools to universally screen and proactively treat students so that we can improve school culture. We're replacing the incomplete and biased referral systems currently in place for screening and increasing the number of providers in schools while also enabling deeper collaboration between providers and school staff. We're going to fund these clinicians through a simple and sustainable model: Medicaid billing and school cost sharing. Philanthropy will support our lean program management. As our pilot program showed us, 75% of screened students qualified for therapy. We need more full-time clinicians to meet this demand, and that's why we're asking for $250,000 in funding to give us a 2-year runway to establish Medicaid billing infrastructure and hire 5 full-time clinicians. Kids need more from our schools than they're currently getting. Your early investment will help us radically transform public education. Join us.
When Mark was diagnosed with brain cancer, our world was turned upside down. And the first thing that we thought of was, how are we going to tell our kids?
One thing that I have learned as a survivor and a fighter of cancer myself is that it's not just about me. Pickles is an organization that puts my children at the center of it, and it's been a true blessing for us.
Just started the Empower curriculum, but I feel like that, for me personally, is going to be is my favorite part, knowing that he's going to have that guided support and guidance and be able to have that experience with other kids that are going through the same thing he is.
I'm Kelsey Mora, and I'm the Chief Clinical Program Officer for Pickles Group. We really know that research and evidence supports that when kids have honest language and coping skills, and most importantly, a community of kids who understand their shared experience, that they can really thrive. And
I'm Cassie Horton, and I'm the Executive Director of Pickles Group. At Pickles Group, we know that having a parent or caregiver with cancer can be a really lonely, isolating experience. That's why our mission is to provide free peer-to-peer support and resources to those kids. Pickles kids strengthen their resilience, have fun with kids who really get them, and have a chance to heal along the way, and we're proud to do that work.
You can find out more at Pickles Group. It's www.picklesgroup.org.
Greetings. My name is Martin Beck, and I am the founder of Common Unity Properties, and we are a social impact for-profit that develops micro-communities and provides wraparound social services leading to stable housing and stable lives. There are an estimated 552,830 people in the United States alone experiencing homelessness. Now, within the homeless and highly mobile population, there are individuals and families who are considered vulnerable populations and are known to have been historically overlooked and underrepresented in society. For the past 2 years, I worked as a tenant advocate for Homeline, a Minnesota-based tenant legal services firm. I assisted over 800 tenants during my time there. But what I noticed was that there was a pattern of tenants who were unable to access the necessary resources due to a lack of transportation, a lack of community, or simply being unaware of the resources that were available to them. At Common Unity Properties, we will be creating communities for vulnerable populations that offer a variety of housing types, including an education and social service program and a renter to homeownership program, leading to stable housing and stable lives. Once I graduate from the Crown Family School, I plan on dedicating my time to growing this organization. As the late, great Senator Paul Wellstone said, we all do better when we all do better. And that's what Common Unity is about. Let's work together to create the change we want to see. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to apply, and I look forward to hearing from you.
For some, a COVID infection lasts.
Hi, welcome. We are going to make our announcement in just a few moments. So if our teams could gather by Rob, and if everyone else could come have a seat, that would be great.
People globally who never recovered from our initial battle with the virus. And despite having no history of pre-existing conditions, I've developed a variety of disabling conditions.
Well,
such as
we're
heart
so
issues,
glad
body aches, brain fog, and difficulty walking.
That folks are
My team
here.
and I created a strong
My
bond.
remarks will
Technology
only
helped
last
solve
2 or
my
3
biggest
hours, so just, settle in. I know no one's waiting for anything.
And so we created a robust symptom tracker.
Great.
that
Well,
provides correlations
welcome.
between habits,
I'm
activities,
Carolyn Grossman. I'm the
allowing
Executive
our users to
Director
figure out
of the
their
Rustandy Center for Social Sector
The second problem I
Innovation.
faced
And
was
I'm just
accessing and identifying
thrilled to
credible
have spent the
information
day
and
at
advice on
the
symptom
John
management
Edwardson
strategies that
72
help
Social
manage
New Venture Challenge
So we solved
for
this
the
problem by
12th
creating a
time.
curated search engine
And
database of
without
symptom
further
management
ado,
strategies
would like to turn it
filled with
over
information
to Rob
crowdsourced from the
Gertner
long-COVID patient
to
community,
announce
as well as
today's
vetted by medical
winners.
experts. And the third problem I faced was figuring
And
out
of
what was
course,
the relative
John
impact
Edwardson.
of each of these strategies on my health. so that I could focus less on symptom management
Want to say
and
anything
more on
before
just
we get
living.
started?
We solved
Okay.
this problem by...
We're about to jump right in. I know I kind of feel like I want to say something because people are actually listening very closely to for one of the few times that actually happens. But I just want to, we thanked a lot of people before. I just want to thank all the teams that participated in SNVC. Your commitment to addressing social problems and your dedication is amazing. And it's just such a pleasure for me and for everybody else, the coaches, the mentors, the judges, the donors, to be exposed to you, to work with you, and to help you as you try to have such an important impact on the world. Now, I know our welcome is over, so we're going to get right to it. First, we have the Audience Favorite Award, and the winner of that is Rehive. This one, no, it's this one. It's this one. We got big checks. This is $5,000, so it's a decent-sized check, but it's a big check.
Handheld, stand outside so they see it.
Okay.
Yep. There you go.
Great. So first, I want to congratulate all the finalist teams. Everyone did a fabulous job today. And we're going to announce 4 prize winners. We're going to start with 4th place and go to 1st place. So in 4th place, winning $20,000 is Mazaru.
Can I just pat him on the head once, or is that not allowed?
Yeah, it's working better. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In 3rd place, winning $30,000 is Demi. In 2nd place, winning $50,000 is Apprendi. We're good. And the winner of the 12th annual John Edwardson 72 Social New Venture Challenge, winning $75,000, is Together Science. So thank you all for being here and joining us today. And John would like to say one quick thing.
Yeah, thank you very much, and this will be quick. One of the judges asked me earlier today, what is the biggest difference between the first of these 12 years ago and the one today? And I'm not sure this is completely true, but it's almost close to being completely true. Nearly every presenter 12 years ago was a white male. And if you look at the diversity in the room today, I have to say, as a University of Chicago trustee, as a Booth alum, and as the grandfather of 2 adopted African-American daughters, I love to see the diversity in this room today, and it's choking me up to think about it. But this is the America I want to live in. So congratulations.